The anime begins with a boy named Ikki. He is known as the worst in school because he has no magical talent and is seen as a lonely nerd and a loser. Moreover, Ikki was not seen as worthy of carrying the family name. He was expelled from the village because he couldn't perform even the most basic spell and couldn't become a powerful mage like the rest of his family. Because of his lack of talent, and because people thought he was a failure and useless, Ikki's own family disowned him and left him alone to fend for himself and learn how to live. Even without the natural talents of his family, Ikki was determined to prove his worth and was set on winning the famous 7-star tournament. One day, he receives big news about Princess Stella, the strongest and most beautiful magical knight with red hair. Upon learning more about Princess Stella's perfect life, Ikki became envious and thought about how unfair everything was. So he went out for a run, believing that the harsh weather would help him deal with his envy while improving his sword skills. He wanted to be a magical knight, someone special who could manifest their soul as armor and use incredible abilities. After training, he returns to his room and finds a steamy girl inside who had forgotten to close the door. The girl, who is actually Princess Stella and has just enrolled at the school, becomes embarrassed and goes to complain to the principal. To her surprise, the principal mentions the school's traditions and values, emphasizing how her actions could damage her reputation. He asks Ikki to take responsibility as an adult and act like a man, not like a child. He awkwardly apologizes, but Stella insists on a serious duel to make up for the mistake. He tries to argue to ease the awkward situation, which only ends up making things even worse. In a last effort to avoid trouble, he compliments her appearance. And surprisingly, it works, since she had been single for quite a while and wanted to have a little fun around. Stella becomes all shy due to what happened. But then the principal interrupts the romance of the two lovebirds and reveals that they are going to be roommates. He thought it would be a good idea to place the weakest, Ikki, in the same room as the strongest, Stella. This ends up causing an argument, and the principal suggests a simulated battle to settle them. Stella proposes that the loser should become the winner's servant, and the friendly Ikki excitedly agrees with the idea. On the battlefield, the principal reminds everyone that it is only a simulation, ensuring that there will be no serious injuries, but the competitors can drain each other's energy to win. And so, an intense battle begins, and Ikki shows some rather good sword skills, managing to defend against Stella's fire attacks with skill. He is impressed by her talent and dedication, explaining his sword technique that helps him predict the opponent's movements. When he is about to land a decisive blow, Stella uses one of her magical abilities, and Ikki's attack has no effect on her. She used all her magic in a powerful strike against Ikki. But to everyone's surprise, he used magic to quickly dodge her attacks. Then, with a strong blow, he defeated her and won the battle. After the fight, Stella ends up in the hospital and asks the principal how Ikki managed to defeat her, even though he is so weak. The principal explains that the ranking does not solely reflect a knight's real combat ability, but rather their overall skill. She accidentally reveals that there is no fair way to evaluate Ikki. Then, Stella reveals that her reason for studying abroad is to be recognized for what she can do, not just for being talented and powerful. Later, Stella goes to Ikki's room to apologize, but he is already fast asleep. She watches him for a while until she accidentally wakes up, and she becomes very embarrassed. She apologizes to him and says she will be his little servant, as they had agreed earlier, to do everything he wants. But he laughs and says he would rather have her as his roommate, and she agrees and is very happy. The next day, after running together, he mentions that he runs 20 kilometers every day. She says she was able to keep up with his pace during the run, suggesting that she can run just as well as he can. He then mentions that his sister was starting school that day, which makes her feel a little suspicious, but he calms her down, saying that they are real siblings. In the classroom, their new teacher, Yuri Ari, welcomes the newcomers and explains the rules for the upcoming competition. She says that the selection will be based on real battles, and that the top 6 will be chosen as the school's representatives. But before she can explain the combat techniques, something strange happens. She spills a red liquid on the floor, looking like blood. Later, Ikki and Stella visit her in the hospital, and she explains that this happens almost every day, vomiting nearly 60 liters of blood onto the floor. He suggests that she not push herself so hard and take better care of herself, and then tells Stella that he owes everything to Yuri, because without her, he would never have been able to enter the school. Later, a girl named Kagami praises Ikki for his performance in the simulated battle and cheerfully asks for an interview. He becomes embarrassed, and Stella gets very jealous of the protagonist, even walking away to avoid hitting Kagami. He says he won't be able to give the interview and tries to get closer to Stella, but is soon interrupted by another girl named Shizuku, who approaches him and immediately calls him brother. Ikki confirms that this girl is indeed his sister, but surprises everyone when this same girl kisses him on the mouth, leaving everyone in shock. Shizuku becomes shocked and sad, clearly showing how much she missed Ikki during the 4 years they were apart. Stella steps in, pushing Shizuku away, and scolding the protagonist for doing something so wrong and very suspicious with his own sister. During an argument between Shizuku and Stella because of Ikki, Stella ends up revealing to everyone that she and the protagonist have a relationship in which he is the master and she is his servant, or rather, his little dog, which leaves everyone shocked. Shizuku immediately draws her water sword, and Stella does the same thing, creating a very tense atmosphere as they exchange insults about each other's appearance and continue cursing at each other. But fortunately, before they could attack one another, the principal appeared and took them to the girls' bathroom, giving them a serious scolding for using weapons to fight outside of designated areas. As punishment, she orders both of them to clean all the girls' bathrooms for more than a week. Afterward, the principal leaves, but as expected, instead of cleaning the bathroom, the two begin to insult each other even more. After finishing their chores, Shizuku tells Stella not to behave in a shameful manner and reveals how Ikki felt ignored and treated as if he didn't exist. Stella is visibly affected after hearing that. Later, Stella goes to talk to Ikki, who speaks beautifully about his difficult childhood. He tells her how his family treated him badly because he did not have the same powers as his grandfather, who was Ryoma, a very famous and powerful samurai. His family excluded him from important events, and he felt left out. The protagonist even remembers a New Year's party, which was when he decided to run away from home because of that. Lost and not knowing where to go, he almost gave up until his grandfather appeared and encouraged him not to give up and to keep trying. He says he had to learn everything he knows on his own until now, and he never had anyone to help him. Many people did not want him to become a knight, especially the former principal, who placed obstacles in his path. But the new principal is more supportive and assigned him to work alongside Stella. The next day, Ikki and Stella are training with their swords for the upcoming competition, where the school's representatives for the Seven Stars Festival will be chosen. After training, Stella tells Ikki about her opponent, who is Mamani. Ikki then begins to share details about Mamani's fighting style, but Stella prefers to keep things as a surprise to improve their training. They agree not to always know their opponent's abilities. Later, feeling nervous and a bit shy, Stella invites Ikki on a date for the following day, but he receives a message from his sister that ruins everything. The next day, Stella accompanies Ikki and Shizuku, clearly very jealous, as they go shopping. She gets very upset when she sees Ikki and Shizuku holding hands, which leads once again to a heated argument. Shizuku introduces her roommate Alice, and they walk around the mall together. Stella accuses Shizuku of behaving inappropriately. Later, at a restaurant, Stella's jealousy grows when Shizuku accidentally spills ice cream on her cheek, and Ikki wipes it off, making Stella even angrier. Meanwhile, in the men's bathroom, Ikki talks with Alice about his strange little sister, Shizuku. While they are talking, they hear a noise outside and hide in Alice's dark dimension. There they discover that there are kidnappers in the mall and decide to investigate. The school principal gives them permission to handle the situation. Meanwhile, the kidnappers take several hostages, including the girls. Stella intervenes when a child is threatened, using her firepower. Bishop, the leader of the kidnappers, absorbs Stella's attack and strikes back. To save the hostages, she agrees to do what the villain says and removes her clothes. Meanwhile, Ikki struggles to break free, unaware of what is happening. Shizuku creates a magic barrier to protect the hostages, while Ikki, Alice, and Stella manage to defeat the kidnappers. Ikki apologizes to Stella, and Shizuku admires his courage. At that moment, Karara appears and saves the day with a laser attack. Later, he boasts about his heroics and insults Ikki, but Stella defends him. However, Karara exposes Ikki's past defeat against him and reveals that he will be Ikki's first opponent in the upcoming tournament. The next day, the competition begins, and Stella's first opponent is Mamatani, known as the Heavy Tank, due to his impenetrable defense. Yep, him. He has a somewhat rare device called Goliath, which releases an enormous amount of power in one-on-one and close combat in general. The audience applauds Mamatani for his combat skills and his experience in the competition, expecting him to be a tough opponent. However, Stella faces Mamatani with tremendous confidence and intimidates him into surrendering, being declared the winner. This surprises everyone and proves that she is more than just a favorite to win the competition. Later, Ikki watches a video of Karara's combat skills, along with Stella, and is impressed. He asks if Karara was using an area invisibility technique that makes someone's presence and scent undetectable, creating perfect camouflage. Ikki confirms that this is a feature of Karara's weapon, which gives him a difficult advantage. Ikki agrees, saying that if Stella were to face Karara in battle, he would probably withdraw, as her long-range attacks easily counter his stealth tactics. He explains that Karara avoids facing opponents who use long-range attacks like Stella, and is known as the Hunter, because he likes to fight silently, in his own way. Stella soon criticizes Karara for his cowardly style, calling him a coward, but she still acknowledges that he can be a challenge for Ikki. She worries about his safety, and asks if he is prepared to face Karara. Ikki reassures her, saying he has found a way to defeat Karara and is confident. Later, while running with determination, Ikki meets Alice, who asks if there was any issue between him and Karara. Ikki shares his past with Alice, telling how his family, with connections to the former school principal, tried to expel him the previous year. Karara saw this as an opportunity to attack him and began to intimidate him. He challenged Ikki to a duel to prove his worth, but Ikki didn't want to get involved. Even so, Karara continued provoking and attacking Ikki, even when he did not want to fight. For that reason, Karara was not punished by the school principal. After hearing this, Alice wishes Ikki good luck before leaving. As the competition approaches, Stella asks Ikki if he wants to watch the ongoing matches, but he says he prefers to stay in the waiting area, focusing on his strategies. In the waiting area, he receives instructions from a digital screen that warns about the risks of the real competition. The screen asks if he is aware of the dangers, and Ikki confirms that he is ready to participate. Suddenly, a girl dressed in a red kimono, Miki, scolds him for his impulsive decisions, but he replies that he trusts his abilities and is determined to compete. He recognizes Miki as Seo, a demon princess from the main league, and she is happy that he recognizes her. Then she hugs him and offers private special lessons that night. However, their conversation is abruptly interrupted by the principal, who questions Seo about her behavior with Ikki and reminds her of her responsibilities. Seo tries to hide behind Ikki, but the principal takes her away. The match begins, and Ikki remembers his childhood and his first meeting with Stella. The announcer welcomes everyone, while Seo makes a disgusted face as she looks at the audience. Karara enters the arena confidently, being cheered by the crowd. Ikki also appears, and the battle begins. Karara uses her invisibility technique to attack Ikki from various directions, provoking him. Despite the challenge, Ikki manages to dodge all the laser attacks by tracking where they came from to find and strike her. However, Karara suddenly vanishes and announces her next moves before attacking, landing several blows on Ikki, who is severely injured. He explains that Karara can now use her invisibility to attack with her lasers, making it even harder for him to dodge. Seeing Ikki in trouble, Stella becomes furious and wonders why he did not attack first. Alice explains that Ikki was probably nervous and a little afraid to fight, making Stella realize the truth and feel guilty for not understanding sooner. In the arena, Karara continues her deadly attacks and reveals to the crowd the conditions set by the principal. Ikki must win the 7 Stars Festival to graduate. The audience starts laughing, doubting that he can win. Karara delivers a deadly blow, and Ikki falls to the ground, being mocked by her and everyone watching. Stella becomes extremely angry and tells everyone to shut up and stop mocking her beloved. That makes Ikki very happy, and it helps him get up once more, preparing himself to face Karara again. He realizes he needs to trust in his technique and in himself, using his sword to withstand Karara's attacks. Using his excellent vision, he clearly sees what he must do and manages to land a blow on her, ending the fight right there. After the intense battle, Ikki ends up fainting from exhaustion, as he had used a lot of his powers to fight. In the hospital, Stella stays by his side, worried. She ends up falling asleep next to him, creating a very cute scene of the two of them together. Meanwhile, Alice comforts Shizuku, who is very sad about the battle. When Stella wakes up, she scolds Ikki for not waking her before falling asleep beside her. He takes the moment to express his feelings for her, saying how happy he is to have met her. Stella becomes embarrassed by that, because not even we expected him to say that at that moment. Stella then returns his feelings with a kiss on the cheek, and they promise to fight together to reach the top of the knighthood. 2 weeks pass since Stella and Ikki shared their feelings, but Ikki still hasn't made a move, which makes Stella angry. While she trains with her sword, preparing for future battles, her anger about not knowing what Ikki really wants makes her thoughtful. Meanwhile, Ikki stands out in the competition, winning 5 consecutive matches and changing his reputation from the worst of all to the greatest of the swords, and soon after, he is applauded by the crowd. After a victory, the reporter Kagami and her friend approach him, interested in learning fencing. Ikki agrees to teach them, making Stella jealous and worried about it. Since the girls were giving him a lot of attention, and he barely spoke to her. The situation becomes complicated when the boys in his class, jealous of all his fame, and because he is literally the most famous at school, decide to threaten him, saying they would beat him up and trying to scare him. Before the class with instructor Yuri-chan begins, she feels sick and vomits blood again in the room, causing panic among all the students and resulting in the class being postponed. Back in the room, Stella tells Ikki that he is too nice to other girls and should spend more time with her instead of giving signals to everyone. Ikki, being a bit clueless, doesn't quite understand what she meant and simply says he doesn't mind helping others. Just as Stella is about to speak more seriously about wanting more attention from him, she sees that Ikki has already fallen asleep, which makes her even angrier. The next day, Ikki teaches some girls about one-leg balance, a Chinese technique to become stronger in the middle of fights. He explains that this is key to enduring intense battles. Reporter Kagami takes notes eagerly, wanting to write an article. The boys in his class become annoyed seeing Ikki surrounded by several pretty girls and decide once again to confront him to see what he's made of. They arrive calling him a weak senpai and wanted to fight him. But then Ikki surprises everyone and defeats the boys in a fight using only his hands without even drawing his big sword. The boys admit defeat and ask Ikki to teach them too. Ikki agrees immediately and becomes the master of the big swords. Kagami continues taking notes, capturing every turning point at this school. Later, Shizuku brings some drinks to Ikki and asks him to teach her fencing too. Ikki says she should learn with a master from his family, leaving Shizuku curious. She sees Stella holding 2 juice bottles, a bit embarrassed for having exaggerated her thirst. Stella says she wanted to be the only one to bring a drink for Ikki, but Shizuku got there first. Then Stella pretends the drinks are for herself so she doesn't look like a third wheel. After drinking everything like Uncle Pico at his peak, Stella insists on wanting Ikki to teach her too, but he hesitates and she gets upset, leaving annoyed. On her way out, she runs into Alice and tells her what happened with Shizuku. Then she realizes Alice has a plan up her sleeve. So Ikki explains to Stella about an autumn game called Private School Prince Academy, and even gives her the game to play. Later, in her room, she's playing the game, imagining the characters as if they were Ikki, hoping he could be as affectionate as they are. Suddenly, Ikki enters the room and surprises her. He invites her to join him and the others for fencing lessons. Stella is still upset with him, so she asks why she should go. He replies that she's already doing really well in fencing, praising her techniques, which are completely different from his. She ends up agreeing to go watch him train the others at the pool. Later, on the bus back to the room, they're holding hands, enjoying a peaceful moment together. But then both receive emails from the school with their upcoming match opponents. Ikki will face the student council secretary, and Stella will face Ikazuchi, the council's secretary. The next day, Ikki fights someone named Tomorrow in the match, who uses a crazy move called Corridor High, where she runs like crazy at insane speed. Ikki struggles to keep up, but manages to maneuver and catch her, winning the match. Meanwhile, Stella is fighting Iachi, who uses a skill called Weight Accumulation of Slash to attack her, but she defeats him, securing her victory as well. After the matches, Shizuku shows up to congratulate Ikki and offers to sleep beside him to take care of him while he recovers. Stella gets upset and asks Ikki to keep his distance from Shizuku, but Shizuku uses her charm and Ikki doesn't seem to notice her intentions, because he's quite the fool. Then Shizuku looks at Stella full of herself, talking about sibling bonds and asking Stella not to interfere. Suddenly, Alice reveals they've been being followed for nearly a week. Ikki calls the person out of hiding, and a shy girl named Ayazatsuji appears, who is hiding behind a tree using branches. Stella remembers that this Ayaz is the same girl she accidentally hit with a ball at the pool during training. The girl starts panicking and ends up falling into the nearby water. They rescue her and take her to the hospital. Ayaz apologizes for the scare and reveals she's a third-year student. Ikki recognizes her last name and asks if she's the daughter of Kaido Ayatsuji, that famous swordmaster. She confirms she is, exciting everyone. Then Shizuku tells Stella that Kaido is known as the last samurai, who won several major battles in tournaments, even without having magical abilities like they do. Then Ikki tells Ayaz how much he admires her father, who was his role model when he was a child. Then he reveals that her father no longer fights due to a serious injury that left him hospitalized. Shizuku asks Ayaz why she was spying on them. Then Ayaz admits she wanted to train, but was too shy to ask Ikki for help. He kindly offers to train her in fencing, and she immediately agrees. They begin training together, and Ikki realizes she already has a solid foundation, probably from her father. He stops the training and tells her not to just copy her father, but to discover her own style. Ikki moves closer to correct her posture, and Ayaz gets all flustered, while Stella and Shizuku get jealous of the scene. He explains to Ayaz about the differences between men and women in fencing and how she can use that to her advantage instead of just copying her father. After this special training, Ayaz starts to improve and becomes impressed with Iki's way of teaching. Later, Iki apologizes for being a bit practical during training, but she says it's fine. Stella and Shizuku, who had been watching everything, understand that Iki was only teaching fencing, and their jealousy eases. Then Ayaz tells Iki that now she feels confident to improve and is determined to win the 7 Stars Battle Festival. Later, Stella asks Iki if he likes giving special attention to Ayaz, joking that she wants the same treatment, but he assures her he only has eyes for her. The next day, Ayaz and Stella train together, and Nikki watches them happily. After training, Ayaz invites them for dinner as thanks. At the restaurant, Stella eats like crazy because she doesn't have to pay. Then Ayaz asks how she stays in shape eating like that. Iki laughs awkwardly and changes the subject. Then Ayaz thanks Iki for teaching her, and he, looking all goofy, says it was no problem. Dinner was going peacefully, but then a gang of guys shows up, led by a big guy named Kurado, and they start bothering Ayaz. Iki steps in and tells Kurado to back off. They try to provoke him into a fight, and Kurado breaks a bottle on Iki's head and challenges him. The situation gets tense, and the other customers run away in fear. Things keep getting more intense. The guys are messing with Iki when a mysterious girl in white with a matching umbrella shows up and stops the waiter from calling the police. Stella was ready to jump in and beat the guys up to defend Iki, but he held her back, stopping her from stepping in. The gangsters keep provoking Iki, but he just smiles like a lunatic and stays calm, not reacting. Then the guys give up on messing with him and leave. After they're gone, Stella scolds him for doing nothing, and for stopping her too. He calmly explains that he didn't want to retaliate so he wouldn't get expelled from the academy, but Stella argues that he could have faced them without using his sword, because those guys were incredibly strong. Then, out of nowhere, a kid appears and says Kurado is a guy called Sword Eater, and that he's a big shot from Donro Academy. The kid, Udaka, says Kurado was in the top 8 of last year's 7 Stars Festival, and everyone is shocked. The mysterious girl with the umbrella, Kanata, appears agreeing with the boy. Then Stella asks Iki if he knows them, and he says that the boy is the vice president of the student council of another academy, and Kanata, the girl all dressed in white, is responsible for a county in the same school. Stella becomes cautious when Udaka offers to heal Iki's wounds, but he accepts without a problem. Later, returning from the restaurant, Ayaz asks if he is okay, and he says he is fine, thanks to the boy's treatment. Suddenly, he receives an email from the school scheduling his next battle against Ayaz. There is tension between them, and Ayaz runs off embarrassed. During training, she disappears and stops attending their sessions. Iki talks to Alice about it, and she tells him to relax, that Ayaz will give a sign before the battle. The next day, just as Alice predicted, Iki receives a message from Ayaz asking to meet on the rooftop at 3 a.m. Alice warns that it might be a trap and that it could cause him trouble, but Iki decides to go, saying he cannot let a friend down. Alice warns again that he might end up breaking the friendship if things go wrong. Even so, Iki remains firm in maintaining their friendship and goes to meet Ayaz on the rooftop, just as she asked. Then she asks about his promise to Stella to win the tournament, and he assures her that they will do their best together. After all the confusion on the rooftop, she sort of sets a trap for Iki, using a move she could only use once a day. Iki, seriously, uses a crazy move to save her, but ends up badly hurt and is now racing against time to recover before the battle. At the hospital, Stella and the others are worried about him, but he is more concerned about understanding Ayaz, who is determined to win to honor her family. The principal arrives, and an investigation begins, but Iki does not want to talk and takes the blame. It is discovered that Ayaz's father became unable to fight after losing a battle against Kurado, who took their land. Now Ayaz wants to win the festival to restore her family's pride. Iki, Alice, and Stella are racking their brains to find a way to defeat her. Then the battle begins, and Iki faces Ayaz. He charges at her, but Ayaz unleashes abilities that leave everyone speechless because she had never shown them before. She uses insane moves and tricks, like invisible whirlwinds and cuts no one can see, but that kind of breaks the rules. But the worst part is that no one notices, because it seems like everyone in the anime is kind of clueless. Anyway, Iki, completely focused, dodges her attacks, surprising her. Then they talk, and he tries to show her that she is losing herself trying to be something she is not. In the middle of the fight, he unleashes a powerful move and defeats her. He praises her for her determination to honor her father, and then she realizes she was deceiving herself and feels bad. But Iki encourages her, saying her strength lies in her heart for not abandoning her father's legacy. In the end, Ayaz asks Iki for help, and he sees himself as her friend, helping to rebuild what she lost. He tells her that having pride in one's sword is crucial when things get intense. Then Ayaz, deeply moved, admits she was fooling herself and feels terrible. But Iki, calmly, assures her that her strength is still intact because she never forgot her father. Ayaz thanks Iki for his support and asks for help without a specific reason. He wants to help as a comrade, and she starts to see him as a true swordmaster, like her father. She asks for guidance, and Iki appreciates her determination for battle. Then she remembers the good times with her father, who had to stop fighting because of his heart when she was still in school. However, he never stopped guiding her and his other students with unshakable dignity. He taught her crucial techniques, like relaxing the shoulders while keeping the arms strong, tightening the wrists without tension, and mastering the secret technique Tenai Muhal. Ayaz found these teachings challenging, but her father praised her for always following his instructions. He constantly reminded her to take pride in her skills, always maintain civility, help the weak, and face evil. These lessons deeply penetrated Ayaz's heart, and she carried them with her even after her father's unfortunate illness. Later that same day, Stella was looking at her phone and discovered some things about Kurado, the so-called sword devourer. The guy illegally entered other schools and destroyed several martial arts academies in the city. A real madman. Then she told Iki about the day Kurado fought Ayaz's father. Kaido was thrown to the ground, and her father had to apologize for not protecting her earlier when Kurado had already injured him. Ayaz was there, dying of guilt for not having faced Kurado that day, and reclaimed her place. She regrets not helping her father when he needed her the most, and gets angry at Kurado's sword, which is just brute violence, without pride or skill. Then Iki took them to what used to be his father's house, but now belongs to Kurado. When they entered, they saw some guys from Kat's gang laughing inside. Iki calmly asked if they knew where Kaido was. After finding out, they went to confront Kurado. Iki asserted himself and challenged Kurado to a duel, promising to reclaim Ayaz's family home and school. Kurado mocked him, talking about Iki's lack of courage back at the restaurant. But Iki said this time was different. He reminded Kurado that that place was once a martial arts school, and that, as a master, if Kurado gave permission, they could face each other. Kurado laughed, agreed, and said Iki needed to prove he was worthy. Then Iki called one of Kat's henchmen to test his strength, and Kurado pulled out a deadly sword that could transform into various forms. The fight began with Kurado charging, but Iki managed to defend himself. However, Kurado was too fast, attacking non-stop, and Iki was struggling to dodge and counterattack. Kurado shaped a snake made of bones on the sword and came at him with everything, mocking Iki. Even with his perfect vision, Iki was in the fight of his life trying to block Kurado's attacks. Kurado boasted about being the first to reveal his ability called counter-marginal. After the first round, they attacked Ayaz from both sides, but Iki managed to defend himself with some crazy dodges. Kurado switched to 4 directions, and Iki got completely lost and almost took a fatal blow. They continued the duel, and Ayaz was eager to intervene, but Stella said that if she entered the fight, her family wouldn't be able to recover the house or the school. Stella also said that Iki was enjoying the fight, trying to figure out how to beat Kurado. While this was happening, Ayaz realized that her father's defeat wasn't due to weakness, but because Kurado was a hardcore and extremely overpowering opponent. A 10 out of 10. Seeing Iki in the adrenaline of the battle, she imagined that her father must have felt this excitement in his last fight, and remembered him apologizing for being that way, even though he enjoyed this battle thing. Ayaz finally understood what her father had meant, and even shed a few tears. She realized that she wasn't yet a true swordswoman, that she wasn't truly connecting with the whole concept of fighting. Meanwhile, Stella saw Kurado's weakness, and noticed that he was exhausting himself with the move he was using. Iki was fully determined, saying that he hated losing, and was enjoying the battle too much to end it quickly. He promised Ayaz that he would avenge her father and charged at Kurado with a technique he had learned from Kaido, the Tenai Muvo. It's Teni Muvo, but I wrote it this way to make it easier to understand. This style had been attempted by Kaido before, but had failed. Ayaz was impressed by Iki using this technique, and Stella even revealed that she had trained with it too. After taking a few hits, Kurado wanted to know who Iki was, and suggested they continue the fight at the 7-Star Battle Festival before stepping aside and leaving the place for Iki. After the battle, Ayaz apologized for not realizing earlier what it meant to be a true swordswoman, but Iki told her it wasn't her fault. Meanwhile, at Shizuku's house, the tense conversation with her father continued. She decided to leave and said she only came because of her mother's messages. But then, her father revealed that he was the one who wrote the messages pretending to be her mother because he knew she wouldn't respond if it were him. Shizuku asked what he wanted, and he said he was worried about her. He said he was proud because she had won all 12 of her selection matches and believed she would represent the school in the 7-star tournament. But she didn't care, and asked why he didn't care that Aiki was also doing well in the matches. And then she left. Back at the cabin in the mountain, Aiki heard a strange noise and went outside to see a giant made of rocks attacking the cabin. He ran back to protect Stella, carried her to a safe place, and returned to face the rock giant. He summons his sword and attacks the monster, but it splits into small rock monster, making the fight more difficult. The monsters head towards Stella. At that moment, Reinin arrives and rescues Stella, handing her over to Aiki. The rest of the student council arrives and begins to fight the rock monster. Aiki believes the monsters are being controlled by a magic knight. Udot appears and explains that this must be the work of someone using the steel wire ability. He says that people with this ability use magical ropes to control things like these rocks. Suddenly, the president of the council, Topa, also arrives and joins the fight. She explains that, no matter the distance of the steel wire, everyone is connected by the same powers as the monster, so it can be traced. Topa uses her thunder-cutting attack and destroys the rock monsters, leaving Aiki shocked by her power. Topa is one of the 4 finalists from last year, and the strongest in the academy. Meanwhile, Shizuku receives a message saying that her next opponent in the Battle of the 7 Stars will be Toka, and she finds it somewhat amusing. The following week, Shizuku takes a journey down memory lane, reminiscing about her childhood. She remembers how adults would forgive mistakes if the person had power, but her brother Aiki never bowed to that. This inspired her to be strong, even without knowing the loneliness he endured, ignored by the family. Determined to follow in his footsteps, she promises to defeat Toka in the Battle of the 7 Stars Festival. During lunch, Aiki, Stella, and Alice discuss Toka's powers after reading an article about her. Alice asks Aiki about Toka, but he says he didn't have much time to talk to her and only saw a little of her power in a fight against a stone monster. Even so, it was enough to confirm that she is very powerful. Stella is worried that Shizuku might lose, but Alice reassures her, saying that she is preparing with simulated battles against veterans who use lightning. Alice explains that Shizuku's ability to control magic at a high level allows her to create ultra-pure water that doesn't conduct electricity, which counters the natural disadvantage of water against lightning. Even so, Iki is worried about Shizuku, and although he wants her to win, he doesn't want her to be too hard on herself. Later, Shizuku shares her feelings with Alice, expressing her love for Iki and her desire to be strong to help him. She promises to show her strength in the next fight and prove herself. The battle between Shizuku and Toka begins in the arena. They face off, and the commentator announces that Toka is number 1 on the rankings list. Toka boasts about her speed, saying no one can escape her, and her golden lightning attack hits the opponent in the blink of an eye. Shizuku summons her sword first, and Toka follows, summoning her thunder sword. Meanwhile, Shizuku recalls her childhood and her love for her brother, determined to win. For a while, neither of them moves, only staring at each other, confusing the audience and commentators. Instructor Seo, the supervisor of the fight, explains that both are waiting to see who moves first, as both have the potential to be champions of the 7 Stars, but a careless move could be fatal. Aiki knows Shizuku doesn't want to attack first because Toka is deadly in hand-to-hand combat. He explains to Stella that Toka's technique is so powerful that she earned the nickname Curved Lightning, a super electromagnetic sword drawing technique. In the past, Toka used this technique to defeat many opponents. Shizuku creates an ice barrier to protect herself, but Toka quickly avoids it and counters from a distance, just as Shizuku predicted. Toka summons a giant wave and dodges Shizuku's water shots with her thunder sword, countering the wave. She continues attacking, and her speed becomes evident. Aiki explains to Stella that, in order for Shizuku to maintain her wave technique, she needs to generate ultra-pure water, while Toka only needs to keep attacking with lightning. Suddenly, Shizuku uses ice to trap Toka and launches an attack, leaving the audience applauding the epic battle. Toka's left wondering how Shizuku managed to counterattack and trap her in ice, as it's impossible for Shizuku to see through her magical power control. In the blink of an eye, Toka closes in and unleashes a barrage of attacks that Shizuku barely manages to dodge. Toka attacks again and hits Shizuku, severely injuring her. But in reality, she hit her water shadow. Even so, the impact hurts. The fight continues and Shizuku is unable to predict Toka's movements, falling at a disadvantage. Everyone is confused because the battle is no longer balanced, and Shizuku can only defend herself with difficulty now. Iki explains to Stella that Toka's technique, called Nushi, hides the opponent's existence from the unconscious mind. He remembers that instructor Seo once did this to him. Iki says that even though Shizuku's eyes see Toka's movements, her mind doesn't recognize them as important and ignores them. Suddenly, Seo appears and confirms everything. She explains that the technique is a mix of stealthy steps and breathing techniques from ancient martial arts. The director also appears and asks how Iki recognized Toka's technique. He says he was surprised that a student could do the same as Seo. The director reveals that both learned from the same knight, known as the god of battle, Nango. Seo becomes embarrassed and curses the master, but the director orders her to leave. The director tells Iki that he should know Shizuku cannot overcome Toka's special technique. He agrees and thinks Shizuku needs a new strategy to win in close combat, or she will lose. Determined to show how much she loves Iki, Shizuku decides to go beyond her limits and goes on the offensive, using her water blades with everything she has. Toka counters, and the two fight on equal terms for a while. The battle intensifies, and Shizuku creates a magical ice field to move better and attacks Toka, using water shadows in the mist. Toka struggles to move, while Shizuku uses her special water blade technique. But then Toka unleashes her ultimate lightning attack and knocks Shizuku down, despite all her efforts. Shizuku loses the fight and is taken to the hospital. When she wakes up, she sees Stella, Alice, and Iki waiting for her, worried. Upon realizing she lost, she asks everyone to leave, saying she is tired. They leave, but Iki and Stella watch her from outside. Alice tells Stella that Shizuku has gotten much stronger. Iki comforts her, hugging her and praising her for doing well. He says he watched until the end, and that she doesn't need to be so hard on herself. Shizuku hugs him back and cries, releasing her emotions. In the following days, Stella wins a total of 14 battles. After each fight, she and Iki take peaceful walks in the forest, casually discussing the battles. The next day, Iki reflects on his grandfather's words and To's dedication to caring for underprivileged children, giving them courage. He looks at his empty, useless sword, wondering what to do next. Meanwhile, To is talking to her mother on the phone when Shizuku arrives. Udaka greets her, and Toa apologizes for calling her. She asks if Shizuku knew that Iki's next opponent would be her. Shizuku confirms that she knew and is worried about the Federation's dubious methods. She heard that Iki wasn't well, but believes he will fight with all his strength to defeat her. Toa adds that she can't take shortcuts when facing him and must fight him with her heart and soul. She asks Shizuku if she's going to ask Iki to forfeit the battle. Shizuku says she needs time to think, and later asks Alice if she should stop Iki from fighting. Alice says that only she can find the answer, as she is the only one Iki trusted, understanding his strong determination since the previous battle. Shizuku wonders if she will be proud to go to the national championship after this fight, winning by default if Iki forfeits, or by defeating him if he shows up. Udaka reminds her that the fight may be fixed by some adults from the ethics committee to satisfy their own interests, and tells her she should fight in a way that she will be proud of. Meanwhile, Stella practices her own battle. Later, the final event of the school is announced, with 6 matches at different locations, where the winners will earn tickets to the 7-Star Festival. Iki is facing Mizuki Ohinada, one of the guys from the school, while everyone is eagerly waiting for the fight between Iki and Toa, which is going to be broadcast on TV. The principal and Sako are discussing Iki's next match, thinking that Akaza arranged for Toa to be his opponent, which kind of forces him to win. Then, out of nowhere, the legendary battle god Nango appears, surprising Sako and leaving him flustered. They argue a little, and the principal asks if he came to see Toa. Nango says that, although Toa is his favorite student, he came to see Iki because he's from a Korean family. Akaza arrives and says the fight might be cancelled. The announcement says that Iki still hasn't arrived, and if he doesn't show up in 15 minutes, To will be the winner. The principal asks Akaza why Iki hasn't arrived yet, since he promised that the Federation would bring him. Akaza shrugs and says there must have been a misunderstanding, explaining that when he went to pick up Iki, he had already left on his own. He laughs maliciously and says Iki must be fine, unless he fainted on the way. Meanwhile, Iki, completely exhausted, is thinking about his grandfather's words and wondering if living by the motto of never giving up, always surpassing his limits, was a bad idea. He questions how he can defeat Toa when no one believed in him, saying that's why he ended up with a weak sword. At that moment, Shizuku finds him and hugs him, saying she doesn't want him to fight against Toa, but she won't stop him. She just wants to see him happy and smiling for everyone, including the students he trained, the student council members, Yuri-chan, the reporter, and himself. Shizuku reminds Ikiai that he inspired everyone, that they dream through him, and that he's not alone. Finally, he sees Stella, who waves excitedly and shows him the medal she earned from winning the battles and finally getting the chance to participate in the 7-Star Festival, as they had promised before. With a new determination, Ikiai decides to participate in the battle and arrives at the arena. Toa and Ikiai step onto the battlefield, and everyone is eagerly waiting for the fight to start. Toa apologizes to Aiki, saying she's been looking forward to fighting him ever since she first saw him. Aiki feels the same and promises not to embarrass her or anyone who has supported him. They grab their swords and the final battle begins. Ikiai immediately starts attacking and uses his ultimate technique, Ido Shura, right away, shocking everyone. Stella, as calm as ever, believes he chose to fight openly without tricks. Toa realizes that if she can avoid his attacks now, she will win the battle. Ikiai is weaker than Toa, but he puts in all his effort to land a perfect blow. Toa prepares to counterattack with her supreme lightning slash, but Aiki calls upon his 7th sword and strikes her before she can react. She falls to the ground, and Aiki wins, leaving everyone stunned. Nango asks if Toa let him win on purpose, but Shiraseo explains that Toa used all her power to counterattack Ikiai, who went beyond his limits to defeat her. Shira suggests giving Aiki's new technique a strong name, something like crushing like a demon or monster. Akaza doesn't believe it and complains that it's impossible, going off to do something to try to discredit Ikiai's success. But the principal tells Seo that it's too late because Ikiai has proven himself, and no one can deny his victory now. While Ikiai struggles to stay conscious, Akaza tries to attack him, but Stella defends him and faces Akaza for challenging him in his condition. She runs to Aiki, expressing her love for him exactly as he is. Aiki realizes that Stella's warmth is what saved him and asks if she would be his family. She agrees to be his fiancée. Everyone applauds Ikiai and Stella, and Shizuku accepts the reality of their relationship. Meanwhile, Ituki receives a call from the Emperor of Vermilion, Stella's father, who informs him that he found out about Ikiai's marriage proposal to Stella. Ituki apologizes, but the Emperor says that his children should stay away from the schemes of adults and wishes them happiness. Later, the winners of the 7-Star Festival selection are announced: Ikiai, Kanata, Alice, Stella, and 2 more girls. They will represent the school at the festival. The principal calls Toa to the stage and announces Ikiai as the new president, and the crowd applauds him as their leader.